Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alabama Woodsman. I'm about to do something that I never thought I'd do. I have preached against this and fought against this. But at the end of this video, I want you to be sure and stay to the end because there's a very important message that I need to give to everyone. Please stay until the very, very end when you see the frame or the tile that says the video's over or the end or whatever. That's when you know the video's over. So please, please, for an important message, stay to the end. As I said, I'm going to do something that I never thought I would do. And I fought against it. I really didn't believe in it until it happened to me. But I had a dream or vision Sunday night that shook me. I wrote it down. I want to tell you about it. I don't know what this does to me. I've never believed in this, but it happened to me. So I'm just going to read it to you. Let me move my camera back a little bit. I'm just going to read it to you. I'll break in a couple times and explain some things that I didn't write. So here we go. I had a dream on June 5th. I felt so tired, more than usual. I rarely ever take naps, but this day I seemed to be stuck in first gear. I woke up that morning feeling uneasy, like when it rains and you wonder if you've left your car window down, that uneasy feeling like something's left undone, just like something's wrong. So I climbed into bed. I laid on my side and pulled the covers towards my head, and what I do is I turn the fan on and try to get the room as cold as I can, and I really snuggle up with the blankets. As usual, I begin to talk to God because when I'm laying there and everything's quiet, it's just one of the times that I want to do that. So I went to a place somewhere between sleep and awake. I think it's called twilight sleep, but it's that in-between place. At first, everything was black, and then I knew I was jumbling my words as I talked to God. I wasn't speaking in tongues, but the flow of the words didn't make sense. Any of you MASH people out there, if you ever saw the episode where they dreamed and Father Mulcahy is hearing a confession and the soldiers is on his side, and as Father Mulcahy starts to drift off and go to sleep, the guy's saying words, but they make no sense. And that's kind of what happened to me, but I was not speaking in tongues. I'm not claiming to have been speaking in tongues. So then it was like I was flying in the air just above the trees, a sensation that I love to feel. I love to dream dreams where I'm flying, not in a plane, but just me flying. I'm not doing a Superman. I'm just kind of flying, and I love that sensation. I love flying. I was headed south to the Gulf of Mexico. I'm in central Alabama, so headed south to Gulf of Mexico to the beach. And in a matter of seconds, I was there. But it wasn't like I was traveling thousands of miles an hour where everything was ripping by me. It's like I was just flying, 10, 20 miles an hour, but then all of a sudden I was there. I was there, but the area was unindustrialized and uncivilized. It was like it was a virgin beach. There were no footprints. There was no trash. It was there was no big waves. It was just little waves. Kind of maybe in a little bit of a cove or a little bit of a hook, but not really in a deep cove. But it was pristine. It's like humans had not been there. I looked over the water and found myself standing on a beach. I looked out to see a bright white light on the horizon. It was white and bright blue at the same time, kind of like those headlights you see on some cars, where it's just a bright white blue. But I also looked to the right to see the orange setting sun. I thought to myself, 2 suns? I stood there in amazement, and then the white light began to grow intensely. This was because it was coming towards me. Soon I felt tingling, like when your arm or leg begins to fall asleep, but not painful, just the tingle. There was no pain, but I was tingling over my entire body. As the light got closer and brighter, I had to close my eyes. The closer it got, I began to find myself unable to stand, and I fell to one knee. And then as it got stronger, I fell to both knees. And right before I completely fell, I kind of put one hand down on the sand, and then I tried to do this to block the light out. But it was like the light came around my hand or went through my hand. It didn't help. It was still hitting me just directly in the eyes, no matter what I did to try to shield my face. I fell laying in the sand, but it didn't feel like sand, like when sand gets on your face or something or in your mouth. It didn't do any of that, but I knew I was laying on the sand. I could hear the atmosphere around me begin to pop like static electricity had flooded the air. It was like popcorn being made, but with a crisp, clean, high-pitched sound like the static pop we all go through in the wintertime. But the air was filled with that kind of noise. All I could do was to lay there as the light approached. I called out to God over and over, "What's happening? I don't know what's happening." Then, as if I just knew what was going on, I began to regret my life. I actually tried to shrivel up into a ball and make myself smaller. I felt the need to crawl and hide myself in the rocks, but there were no rocks. I felt the need to run from this light moving over the water in my direction. I felt something much more than fear as I'd ever known. I've been in 2 wars. I was a police officer. I know what fear is. This was unlike anything I'd ever felt. I didn't fear for my life. It was a deeper terror inside of me. I didn't even consider physical death. It was beyond that. It was much deeper than that. As I lay there trembling, I began to taste and smell the light. In my mouth, the light tasted sweet. When I smelled it, it didn't smell like it tasted. In other words, like if you bite into an apple, you taste the apple, but then you smell the apple and they're the same. This was not the same. I tasted something that I never tasted before, but then there was a perfume, a very floral smell that I'd never smelled before, and they weren't the same. It affected all 5 senses. I could feel the light on my skin. I could hear the light. I don't know how to explain it. But anyway, the air around me continued to pop and crackle as the light approached. I was in full panic. I hated my very existence. It was all I could think about was how filthy I felt. As the light became more intense, my terror began to calm. I still couldn't open my eyes or move from the fetal position I was in, but the feeling of impending doom was leaving. Faintly, I heard in my head, "Stand to your feet." The voice was calming. It was still thunderous, but not because of sound. It was like I could feel the thunder of his voice. When he spoke, it wasn't like rolling thunder, like you hear lightning hit or strike and then you hear thunder. It was more of something I felt. I didn't hear anything. All through this, I didn't hear anything. It was just all like being inside of me. It was like I could feel the thunder of his voice, but it wasn't audible. I was processing all of what I was feeling, hearing what he spoke, and or process everything. And then he spoke, and this time all he said was stand. I was shaking as I stood to my feet, and I covered my face with my hands like this. I didn't want him to look at me. I covered my face with my hands. I knew who he was. I knew who he was, and I couldn't bear to have him even look at me. I stood there with my hands covering my face and he said, look at me. And I begged him, please, Lord, no. Again, he said, look. The light was so intense. I began peeking out, just like trying to peek through my eyes. It was a few painful seconds, but it wasn't like pain. It was just uncomfortable. Like my eyes didn't want to do it. In a few seconds, I saw him. I knew it was Jesus. I didn't see his face, as he was dressed in a plain white, like, gown robe, but it was very plain. It wasn't flamboyant. I could see his shape, but not much more. And I told him, don't look at me. I begged him, don't look at me. As he reached his hand out and took a step backwards, I told him to leave me. Don't come near me. All this was nonverbal. I was crying and I had no power to run or hide when he came towards me. It was kind of like if you've ever seen a dog that's been abused and you reach your hand out to it, they kind of cower down, and I didn't want him to touch me or look at me. I had no power to run or hide, but he wouldn't leave. He said, why did you ask me to leave you? I replied, I'm not worthy for you to even acknowledge me. Have mercy on me and leave me here. Have mercy on me. I deserve your judgment. I have by my own will failed. We stood there as I looked down. I wanted to collapse to my knee, but there was something holding me up, like my knees wouldn't bend. I was on the beach, and he wasn't on the beach. He was in the water back just a few feet, but he was on the water. He wasn't in the water, but the water wasn't. It was just a little bit of water, but he was still on it. He wasn't like on the beach with me. So he began to walk towards me again, and I said, please, no, I'm begging you, no. He stopped, and at once the verse popped into my mind where the people will beg the mountains to fall on them to hide them from the face of the Lord. I just didn't want him to look at me. He said, I give you mercy, my grace is yours. I stood there in tears, still a tremendous feeling of mourning, as if I was mourning my own existence. It's like I regretted ever being born. He said, I want you to speak to all people. And I replied, are there not better speakers than me? He didn't reply to that. Sometimes I would ask him a question and he wouldn't answer. It's like, I don't know, he just didn't answer. I said, I mean, surely there is someone with more of a following than me, and I'm nobody. Jesus never acknowledged my rebuttals. He said, there will be three lies told by those ushering in the time of sorrows, and then the end of days. The first you have spoken of by my Holy Spirit. The lie spoken that I was not man's Savior at birth. Having been faithful in speaking that, I bring you two more soon coming lies. The second lie will be that it is my desire for all to unite, as was in Babylon. He was talking about, this is not in the dream, I'm just commenting. He was talking about how everybody's saying we should unite. All these NAR churches are saying, oh, we should unite, we should unite, we should unite. And they're not even looking at doctrine. It's like, don't worry about our doctrine. Just we should all be united. The second lie will be that it is my desire for all to unite, as was in Babylon. And now that I read this, the verse comes to my mind where it talks about God did not come to unite, but he came to divide, father against mother, things like that. He'll cause a division because there will be some that just won't believe, and there'll be division. He said, goats and sheep look alike, but I know how to separate them. The last lie will be told by those racing to destruction. They will lead many astray before my return, saying, he will not return as written. When the evil appears as a man on earth, most will know his way is not what was written. They will have changed this before his arrival, the one who destroys men's souls, in order to deceive. Okay, so what he's talking about was, as Christians, we know there's a rapture. He said that the third lie he told me that was coming was just as they're changing now that he was not the Savior at birth. They're going to have to they're going to have to get people to believe that the rapture is not going to happen, but that Jesus' kingdom, the Lord's kingdom, will be built on earth to follow the story of the Antichrist. They're going to say that the rapture wasn't real. Now, he didn't tell me this, but in my own mind, I think this is where like space aliens come in. They're going to say we were taken by space aliens. But for the people that remain, they're going to have to already know the lie that the rapture was not real, that it's not the way it was written in the Bible, because they're going to have to be deceived. Then he said, I wait until now to reveal these things, because the remaining sheep are few. I separate the sheep from the goats before I return, and then again in my kingdom. They will hear your words. Those who test or doubt will have my spirit to clarify. Those who are deceived and dismiss will believe the lies told until their destruction. They will be cut out of my flock for eternity. They are free. You are free to speak the words as you will in the manner of your choosing. Men will attack you, call you a liar, and most will not care. Through all that comes upon you, know that you have done my will as a faithful servant. Then he said a word or called me by name that I've never heard. I don't even know how to tell you what that was. He said something, or he called me by another name, and it puzzled me. I don't know what it was. And then he said, forgive yourself. I choose not to recall your failures in this life. You would do well to do the same. As Jesus withdrew from me, he simply moved backwards over the water. He didn't turn around. He just kind of began to just move backwards as he was standing. And I heard, or when I say he said, I mean I heard everything. There was nothing verbal, nothing audible. He said, the time of sorrows is approaching. Many will lose faith, asking, where is he now? The few true sheep will hear my voice and remain. The goats will follow a new strange shepherd leading them astray. That was the last thing he said to me. I opened my eyes, and my entire body was tingling, and I could still hear the crackling and popping in the air. So have you ever been kind of almost asleep and you like jerk all of a sudden? You don't know why, you just jerk. And that's kind of what I did. It wasn't out of fear, but it was just like a reflex, just jerk. And I was in my room still. I could still hear the crackling and popping in the air. It went away in about 3 seconds. I laid there in my bed, face up, with no covers over me. So that was my vision. That was my dream. So here's why I wanted you to stay to the very end of this video for this special message. I made this up in 20 minutes in my office, just out of my head. None of this is real. The tears, real. If you know that song, I Can Only Imagine, that's what I imagine it's going to be like when I stand before God. Very small, very small. I heard a preacher say today when I was listening that a man told him that the guy was shaving and the Lord walked into the bathroom and he kept shaving and had a conversation with the Lord. You could sit there and shave in front of the most powerful, loving God of all as if he's just somebody who walked in your bathroom. I can't imagine doing anything but trying to become small and getting away. But all that dream, the dream was fake. My emotions are real because I went to a place that just made that real. Why did I do this? Folks, you have got to see that these people having these dreams can lie just as easy as I made this story up. They do it all the time. They have these thoughts, maybe daydreams, and they think it happened. They think, just like I daydreamed this and put it down on paper, they do that and think it happened. Or they're just speaking out of their heart, trying to speak something into existence. But none of it's real. The only reason I did this was to show that it can be easily done and easily pulled off. Now, some of you who have the spirit of discernment, you probably were like, this is garbage. The gift of discernment, I meant. You like, automatically, you just knew. Some of you probably were thinking, wow. And some of you probably believed all of it. I did this only to show you how easy a creative mind can make this stuff up. So once again, this was not real. This was not real. I've got some more Timothy Dixon videos coming. A video about Bullock. My computer, the memory's so bad that it's hard for me to make videos. But I will get back on it and hopefully have something for you this weekend. Y'all forgive me for this if I offended you. If you think I'm making a mockery of it, I promise that was not my intent. I really just wanted to show you how easily anyone with a creative mind could make this stuff up. And with that, I gotta go find an aspirin.